All right. Good morning. And I guess good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody that's watching online. In addition to the great crowd that we have here in Alexandria, we also have thousands of people joining us online all around the world because this is such an important topic, particularly for the fire service. So we're here to talk about the challenges of lithium-ion batteries and what we can do about it. Having the importance of understanding the current best practice, the best knowledge that we know to date, and sharing the experiences that firefighters have had all around the world, we've assembled quite a group for you today. So it's going to be great to be able to get this information in front of you and have you be able to take this information back to your departments, start looking at policies, procedures, tactics, strategies, and figuring out how you can do the best you can do to protect your members, have them operate safely and effectively.
So I'm here today to talk about our incident in Surprise, Arizona in April 19th, 2019, which is getting to be a long time ago now. And this is going to be the super abbreviated version because we want to go over some stuff there. But our system, for a quick rundown in Arizona, we're one large fire department all the way across. So we have an automatic aid system. So of the 27 departments in the Maricopa metro area that is represented, the closest unit goes. So whether it's a hazmat, technical rescue, EMS call, fire call, when the tones go out, closest unit responds, no chance to call for mutual aid, anything, just automatic response all the way around. And on this day, when we had our APS incident going on, engine 304 in Surprise was the very first department kicked out on it, onto that call, and we only got picked up as the hazmat unit because Surprise's hazmat unit happened to be on another call at the time. So there was about a 20-minute delay on our hazmat team getting there from the city of Peoria. But this is the building that we had. It's APS substation. It was a 2-megawatt facility. The hardest thing about this was that the only thing that we had permitted was the concrete structure, the foundation that was there. We didn't know what was going on in this building. So when it first kicked out, it actually came out as a fire in the desert area that a passerby kicked into. We didn't know that. So here's some of your time frames. Just before 5 o'clock on that day, there was an incident at the battery at the facility, and they got a battery failure at their satellite site telling them something had gone on. Within 1 minute, the Novak system had gone off. So it wasn't a water system, it was a suppression system that came into play. And after that Novak system went off, it actually knocked out satellite communications. So from that point forward, there was no knowing what was actually going on in that building. And you can see by the quick timeline going on in there, and almost an hour later is when the fire department was first apprised of this. And they weren't apprised by the organization, they were apprised by a passerby that was driving down Grand, and the roadway that was out there is the roadway in the old days that you were trying to go to Las Vegas that everybody gets to bypass now. This was that area, 163rd Avenue and Grand, which is very remote, and I'll show you that. Notice that there was smoke in the desert area as they were coming in and called it. And that's how 304 ended up with the call. And they were thinking they were dealing with potentially the start of a brush fire, something running in that area that they had going on. And so they brought a multitude of their units. And shortly after getting there, their captain balanced it to a hazardous assignment. And we take that into being that the captain that was on the first arriving unit on 304 actually is a hazmat tech. He just was no longer assigned to a hazmat team. I'd worked with him a long time on the hazmat stuff. And when he got there, he saw what was going on and said, this doesn't seem right. Something seems to be going on, and he dispatched us. So when we got kicked out initially, we thought we were actually dealing with a substation because we didn't have a lot of other information coming out of there. And that's what we started preparing with. And just by happenstance of calls that we ended up on a lot over our careers, I'd been on some substation fires when APS had a substation fire on the 4th of July, many, many years prior to that. So initially we thought we were maybe dealing with like large things of basically vegetable silo, right? Going in and the potential stranded energy in a substation that was going on and those transformers that were out there. Shortly after that, their captain was sending back information and said, hey, this wasn't the transformer station, this was a side building next to it. And one of the people on scene had said that they had batteries inside there. So initially, we were thinking, hey, large energy, potential explosions of, the transformers if they got too hot and too on fire, right? And then it quickly changed into, hey, if this is lithium-ion batteries in this area, we have a real explosion hazard that was going on. It was at the forefront of our minds, and we started changing our research and our direction that we were going as to what we had on. So our response time, this is the overall area. As you can see, it's very remote out there. If you look up down there, this is a mostly desert area in the middle. And then right across the street, that's a school that's there. There's housing just behind that. So there wasn't a large evacuation profile, except Grand Avenue is a major thoroughfare that's running through. So those were possibly our evacuation distances. And as we bump in, that little tiny building at the end, so you can see the transfer station there next to it, that was the little building that we were dealing with that actually had the smoke coming out of it. And everybody liked to call it smoke, and I think I'm the only one that called it a cloud. And I'll show you some of these pictures I actually didn't see until months after our incident, after I'd already been in the hospital, the burn center, and come back out, and we were able to see some of these, and it actually validated some of the stuff we'd been saying from the beginning. But when we got there, the initial team had evacuated back out of the distance, and we were set going, hey, are we dealing with a fire that has hazmat or hazmat with fire? And I know the layperson's kind of going, who cares? They're all the same thing. But to all of us nerds on the hazmat area, right, those are very different products, because a hazmat or a fire with hazmat means generally if we save the hazmat or stop the fire, we don't have a hazmat issue. But if we have hazmat that is leading to a fire or helping to propagate those things, we're in a much deeper area of concern that's going on. And that ultimately ended up being what we had. And when we got there, there was a cloud. It was sitting about 3 feet off the ground, 2-3 feet. And it wasn't moving up, it wasn't going anywhere. It was moving across about 100 yards out into the desert, into that area, and then it was dissipating. And we were like, wow. This is very different. Is this because of the suppression system? Is this because of the elements that we have going on? And then trying to get into those areas. So you guys can kind of see those clouds. I think some of you have probably seen this picture. So you can see that doesn't look like traditional smoke, right? Again, a battery on fire is very easy for firefighters to deal with. We can let that baby burn out. It'll take care of all the stranded energy. It'll burn off all those toxic explosive chemicals that can go in there and help with combustion. And they can burn out. We can deal with that. The area that we're running into is what happens when the battery hasn't gotten to the state of burn yet. Right? It's sitting in that in-between to where it's in thermal runaway. It's releasing all those products of combustion, and it's in this area where it hasn't caught on fire, but it has a lot of very volatile chemicals coming out of it. And we don't necessarily have all the proper meters to make sure that we're capturing everything going. One of my hazmat instructors, when they were bringing us up, used to say all the time, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, because our meters can only register so much, right? And our main priority as hazmat teams on the firefighter side is to make sure that we're looking out for life safety. And ultimately, a lot of these chemicals are immediately danger to life and health way before they hit the explosive limit, right? Or the flammable limit. And that's what we're trying to go in. So when we got into this atmosphere, what we were looking at is we were trying to figure out how can we establish a hot zone? How can we evacuate? Where is this moving, and how big can it potentially get? And off of that, we were looking for what we got for readings with our meters, as we got very high levels of CO. We were checking for O2 sensors. We had our tick cameras. We had cyanide that was hitting off the chart, which is probably from some of the plastics that were burning, but it also could be some cross sensitivities that were going on. We were using our pH papers to see, as we were wetting them down, trying to see if any of these chemicals, what was going on and coming into play, if we had any corrosives that were getting rolled off. We were also ticking the building, trying to see if you guys saw that building. It's about the size of a shipping container, and in Arizona in April it had 8 massive AC units on it, right? So we would love that type of cooling conditions when it's 115 plus in Arizona, but that's what they had there. So they were trying to keep something extremely cool, and it wasn't necessarily working when it got kicked off of that area. We were able to establish a hot zone. I told you this is going to be the abbreviated version, so I'm going to jam through it because we want to show you one other incident. And it came down, and over the time that we were there, the 3 hours prior of the incident going on, the building had started to dissipate, right? It had started to go away, and it was isolated just to that building now by the time we were making our final entry into the hot zone. And I think some of the confusion out there in the field is everybody thought we were going in and out and rushing and jamming into that building, but we weren't. We actually only went into the building one time, and it was at the very end. We were creating a hot zone, and we were trying to figure out if we needed to expand or reduce our hot zone for evacuation distances like you all do on regular house fires and other hazmat calls every day. And what we had gotten to is that ultimately this was isolated to that building. And we had more and more people from the company showing up, and their question, they were very friendly, they were very easy to work with, but they had very few answers for us as to what the solution, as to what we could do. And the question that they kept asking was, when do you think we'll get our building back? And I always equate it to like when we have a house fire, right? And when we have a house fire, what's the first thing that the residents start saying to us? Hey, when do you think I'll be able to get back inside? When do you think I can get something out? That's how they were. They obviously have bosses. They were trying to figure out what's going on with our product, and they wanted to know when they had their building back. And based on the meter readings that we were getting with the cyanide, the CO, and just my gut feeling from some of the other things, and potentially knowing that this was an explosive hazard due to some other calls I had been on and dealing with Tesla on those, that we were like, you guys don't even have proper gear like this. You'll get this building back when we're ready, but how long are we supposed to hold on to it for? 3 hours into the incident, we had come up with A, B, and C plans that we had going on, and ultimately our goal was, hey, if this is isolated the building, we'll go up there, we'll open the building up, we'll check to see if there's a fire. If there's a fire, we'll hit it really quick, we'll back out. This place will catch on fire and we'll burn it to the ground. In 6 to 8 hours, we'll all get to go home. Or we'll go up there, we'll open the door, there won't be any active fire going on, and we will go ahead and let this building air out, and in 3 to 4 hours, because we'd already been there for 3 hours since the incident had started, right? We'll be able to meter, it will be good to go, we'll turn their building back over to them, and everybody will be safe, right? And those were our goals, and we had made that plan going around with a lot of our resources in the area. Unfortunately, as we made our entry up, you can see us going up there to get the door. That's me with the red helmet, and that's my one firefighter in that area. As we open the door, now that white cloud comes back out. I had ticked inside. The highest temperatures that we had was about 140 degrees on one portion of the building that was about the size of an AC vent, okay? When we opened the door inside, I stepped inside to tick down to see if we had gone on. And all I said on my last radio communication was 104 degrees, no active fire. And we went to back out. And I remember as I was pulling my crew back out, because I had them behind me because of the potential explosion hazard, so I had set myself up in front because I was placing them in harm's way. As I went to go back, I saw something on the tick camera, and I remember thinking to myself, man, what is that? And boom, it blew up. I don't really remember anything. It hit and miss for about the next month. But that's the aftermath of what our building looks like. So that one building that was there, it's flexed out pretty good. You can see the AC units are there. That door actually struck my engineer, but I like to point out that I'm the person that created the hole in that fence as I was blown back through and bounced across the desert there and took the impact. So for all the good things I've done in my career over almost 20 years, unfortunately, the thing that I think I'm most known for is this incident, which doesn't always make you happy when you come out to talk to these things. But so had injuries, sustained some theories. This out here, you can see my red helmet up there. That's about 80 feet back from the building, and that's where I was on fire and unconscious in the bush. I always like to point out to everybody that whatever you tell your probie, he was actually my booter, not my probie anymore, but at one point in time he was my probie. And on the truck, the last thing that I told him, I said, Jake, if you see fire, if it flashes, you just hit that really quick, allow us to back out, and then we'll let this thing burn down.
North Shore Road is being considered as a lithium battery storage site. This is about 100 feet from nearby homes. The proposed construction includes 30 battery enclosure units that would each hold 24 battery modules. But some residents are a little concerned about the impact that facility could have on the environment and their health. They're calling on the town to scrap the project.
Everybody is for green energy. Everybody. That's the other thing. We're not opposed to that solution. What we're opposed to is putting it near people's homes.
State officials, though, assured residents the project is safe.
No one is here to put anyone in danger. And if we were not confident in the level of oversight and the level of testing and the level of expertise, frankly, that's behind these siting decisions, I would not be here.
Well, Southampton Town says it will also consider a 3-month moratorium on applications from these types of facilities. We'll keep an eye.
I got a question from Herb Jones down in Fort Washington, another import, but still in Congressional District 4. I'm sure you've heard about this, and it's interesting. I'd forgotten that you were chair of the Public Service Commission. This is a Service Commission question. Have you sent a letter to the Maryland Public Service Commission and the Office of People's Counsel regarding BESS? And do you know what that is? The battery electric energy storage.
Yeah, great question. I haven't sent a letter to them yet, although we are, we're working with Pepco to make sure that, in my view, they don't go forward with this project. So for those of you that don't know, in the utilities field, there's a movement towards lithium batteries, giant versions of the lithium batteries that we're using in other, day-to-day life. But the idea is that we need more storage capacity so that as the demand for electricity increases, we can store more instead of using it immediately, which is what the grid is designed to do right now. And so they're trying to do this. There's a pilot program to test out using these lithium batteries. The problem with the lithium batteries is just like the big ones are same with the small ones. Sometimes they catch on fire and cause damage. Now, if it's a battery in a laptop, that's one thing. If it's a big battery in the middle of a neighborhood, which is what they're proposing, that's a whole nother story. So, we've got concerns about whether there would be, well, frankly, how dangerous that would be. And the venue that they're talking about putting at is the substation on Livingston Road. And I just went down there a couple of weeks ago. It's surrounded by houses. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And so I took photos myself. So, if you take the angle, you shoot the camera this way, there are houses behind it. There are houses to the side of it. There are houses to this side of it as well. And we were just talking about this with the staff the other day, and I was talking to OPC Thursday, I think it was. No, Tuesday. Today's Thursday. But I just don't see how it makes sense to put something like this in the middle of a residential neighborhood from a safety standpoint. Pepco wants to put it there because the substation's there and the transition lines run right over it. So from a grid perspective, it's a good spot for them. But I don't think putting it in the community there is a good idea. And this isn't just a regular NIMBY issue where, it's unattractive or something along those lines, or, it'll keep us up at night. The safety issue is real. And one of the things we were talking with OPC about was getting more expert analysis. The Pepco put out a safety plan, I guess about a year and a half ago, which I think I found it unpersuasive. I'll say it that way. And, we've got to make sure that we hold them, really to the highest standard here, because people could be put at risk if we don't do this the right way. And then the last part of that is there are other places where I think we can put this. In fact, this whole process started off with six different sites that had been identified as potential spots for this lithium battery project. I think we need to take another look back at the other sites. I know, again, why they picked that site, from a utility grid standpoint, but we've got less populated places in the county and in the DC region. Maybe we should put this kind of scenario, this kind of facility in a place that's less populated. So if something does go wrong, we don't have lives put at risk.